Burnout doesn't happen just because people are weak. It happens because strong people carry too much for too long. Well, so listen, today on Transformation Station, we're talking about how burnout can actually become a turning point and how leaders can move from exhaustion to breakthrough. Are you ready? I sure am. Let's dig into this conversation. Welcome back to Transformation Station, the podcast where we explore the shifts that help leaders grow and recover and lead with intention. I'm your host, Adrienne Benton, and today's episode speaks to something many of us as leaders experience quietly. That's right, we're talking about burnout. Not the kind you post about, but the kind that drains clarity and patience and passion and presence. And I'm super excited because we have an amazing guest today. His name is Rob, and he brings insight and lived experience into what it takes to recognize burnout, respond with intention, and how to transform it. Now, before we get into this amazing conversation, I have something that I want to say to you. Are you ready? I know you are. That's right. Listen, because of you, guess what? We hit 3,200 podcast downloads. Congratulations. Yeah, that's right. I am so excited because of you and your faithfulness to this leadership community. We are growing, growing, growing. Now, listen, I want to remind you, we're in season 3. If at any point in season 1 and season 2, you missed even one episode, go on back. Come on, let's go back and listen, get caught up. And don't keep this goodness to yourself, right? Share these episodes with another leader in your community so that we can hit 3,500, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000. Keep on going, because the community that grows together expands and lives well together. Well, let me tell you about our guest today. His name is Rob, and he is a high performance coach and speaker and creator of the Prime Performance Process, a system that helps driven entrepreneurs and leaders break through stagnation and build sustainable momentum in both life and business. I want you right now to go ahead and get ready for an amazing conversation that's going to be filled with energy and clarity and tools that you and I can use immediately. Come on, Transformation Station. Rob, I want to say welcome to our podcast today. How are you?
Oh man, I'm doing excellent. Thank you for that introduction. That was incredible. I wish everybody would introduce me that way. Anytime I'm walking into a room, that would just make me feel so good. Thank you.
Listen, we are so excited to have you, because this conversation that we're about to have, it really is relevant. And you know, Rob, as I was preparing for this podcast, I was thinking to myself, what stands out in your work is how you reframe burnout, not as failure, but as information, not as failure, but as transformation. I love the word you use, breakthrough. We can get a mental visual picture of what a breakthrough looks like. And as we're visualizing it, it instantly gives us hope. So I want to start off the conversation by asking you this question. How do you define breakthrough? How do you define burnout? There we go. How do you define burnout in a way that leaders might not expect? And how is it different? How is burnout different from being tired or overworked?
Yeah, so I love this question because a lot of people experience burnout without even actually realizing that they're going into that burnout or slipping into it, I should say. In my realm, I've seen a lot of individuals starting to trickle into that burnout, and the cause is multifaceted. So it's many, wears different masks, right? So some individuals, it could be they've been isolated in their job or even at home, and they don't have that strong support system, and they can't influence and build any people around them like a team. And then other people are struggling with low energy and fatigue, where they're working long hours, and then they come home and they're trying to build a side hustle, and then they've got family that's just bringing them back down. So burnout really comes from a lot of different causes, but ultimately it's this state or place where you're stuck and you're repeating the day to day, and progress slows down to a point where it's almost completely stopped. And that's a tough place because that makes it that much harder to climb back out of.
Absolutely, 1000%. And I know that as you're talking, Rob, that there are leaders that are like, ouch, ouch. They're feeling it right now, because in many seasons, especially when you are a career leader, the requirement is high, right? And I love the fact that you talked about the different categories that we find ourselves in life, right? Husband, father, son, leader, like all these different roles. And so sometimes the requirement is high. And I love the fact that you said that sometimes we don't even realize, like, that's serious. And to every leader that's listening right now, if you are feeling what Rob is describing and you're sitting here saying, oh, wait a minute, that's what I've been feeling, I want you to continue to listen to this conversation, because Rob is going to show us how to break out of this. Now, as you were talking, I was thinking about this, and tell me what you think about this. Burnout is the state where effort no longer produces a sense of progress or purpose or agency. A leader can still be productive, competent, and respected, and be deeply burnt out. And I put that there because that described my journey at one point, being deeply burnt out and not knowing how to define it or clarify it. This is kind of off the cuff. For you, in your experience, what do you say to that leader? Before we talk about how to break out of it, like, what do you say initially to that leader that like how I was feeling at one point, is experiencing a deep burnout?
Yeah, the first thing that I'd be saying, I'd straight up asking them, be like, hey, how are you doing? Like, literally, truthfully, and honestly, how are you doing? Are you run down? Are you pulled to your strings to the last string? Are you moving through, or is it kind of, are you in a situation where you can continue to push through? And I ask that you reflect more consciously on yourself and where you're currently at. You could push, and you know that the season's coming to an end, and you might need to push a little bit more into that burnout. And then there are other times where you've been burnt out for so long and there's no end zone in sight, and you continue to keep pushing, and that's where things exponentially begin to develop and get worse. So first thing is like, hey, how are you actually doing? Let's reflect. Let's be honest. Let's see where we're at. Let's review what we're doing.
Yes.
Then the next step is to identify, do we need to change? Do we need to keep going for a little bit longer? Then the next third step is to strategize. Do we need to find some practices or habits where we can either bring our energy back up or maybe bring our energy back down? And then finally, how do we execute on that and move that forward? And that essentially is my rise to the challenge framework. R is review. I is identify what needs to change. And if it does, what is the strategy that we're going to implement that'll bring us back down? And then finally, E, how do we execute and make sure that we're moving forward? Because I too was in a similar situation where when I first got out of grad school, I was in personal training and strength and conditioning, quickly scaled my book of business up to the point where I was working 7 days a week. I was working 12 to 15 hours every single day. And I was in that similar situation where I was like, push. But I didn't realize that I'd been pushing for almost 3 years straight without ever taking a day off. And until I developed this framework about reviewing, identifying what needs to change, develop the strategy, and then execute on it, I just kept that cycle of burnout rolling. And I imagine you went through something similar to the same, in the same situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was just going. I was so focused on being goal oriented, right? You got to achieve, got to accomplish, that I can honestly say at first, I really didn't realize the sacrifice. I just said to myself, this is what you have to do. Right. And so this is what the requirement is, when in the truth, it really wasn't what I had to do. It was what I was choosing to do until I began to realize that, wait a minute, this is way too costly. This is way too heavy. There needs to be some adjustment here where, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit later on about how we can break out of this. But it took a mentor to kind of sit me down and say, hey, what's going on? I'm seeing some signs. And so with that, I want to ask you this question, right? So most entrepreneurs, most leaders, which is what we're talking about right now, don't even realize that they're stuck until it's too late. From your experience, what are the hidden signs you see most often, Rob? And how do you help us as leaders to break out of it? What are the hidden signs you often see?
Yeah, a lot of physical, mental, and emotional instability. So whether you're kind of showing up high energy, ready to roll, and then flip the script, like you walk behind the door and you immediately crash. You're
Right.
putting on this mask and you're just trying to show up. That's ups and downs, and you want to try to float a little bit more neutral and carry your personality and your emotions through. But when things are unstable and they're fluctuating erratically, that's
Mhm.
a really early sign that, hey, maybe I am pushing myself. Maybe I am getting a little bit into that burnt out zone or that crushed area where I'm really banging down on myself. The fatigue is a huge thing as well. So behind the closed doors, do you see your emotions? Are you still alive, or are you just totally burnt out and just done? Because that's
Mhm.
another huge indicator too. Do you have energy outside of work? Do you have energy when you flip back into human mode? And that, if not, it could be a big sign too. And then things like we mentioned earlier, isolation and maybe chaotic schedule. Maybe there's a high stress, a lot of things going on in life, and or maybe even just the sense of no direction. Been in the same spot, same position for multiple years, no real growth, not really knowing what you're doing. You're just kind of rolling through life aimlessly. A lot of
Mhm.
these things can be those early signs. And oftentimes, individuals who are in burnout already experiencing multiple signs.
Mercy. Mm. Here's what I'm thinking about as you're talking. Emotional numbness or irritability, right? We stop celebrating wins or feel easily frustrated by small issues. Have mercy. Have you seen that one?
I have not.
No, man. I have seen that one, right? Where you start to wonder, well, why is Rob why is he always the littlest things are starting to make him frustrated and angry and upset, right? And sometimes when we're experiencing burnout, it's like you go into this numbness where the you stop seeing things as a win. It's just something that happened, right? And the smallest things begin to cause you to be frustrated. So you teach about the six core principles. Was that what we talked about a few moments ago, the review?
So that would be part of principle number one on building resilience, and
Okay.
so that's the kind of in the first principle there about identifying, setting the foundation to generate momentum and growth going forward.
So tell us a little bit more, right? These six core principles of prime performance, right? If somebody's listening right now and they're feeling overwhelmed, where should they start? Talk to us.
Yeah, starting at the foundation, and that's pulling yourself into that audit of like, hey, what are the different stressors? What are the challenges that I'm accepting? Or what are the things that I'm not accepting? And am I relaxing too much and not really pressuring or challenging myself? Because in that first principle of resilience, you want to get to the sweet spot of what I call the resilience matrix. And you do that by adequately challenging yourself at appropriate times. So a lot of us hustlers or high achievers to often take on a lot on our plate at a time. But also there are individuals who are suffering from burnout and stagnation where they're not really challenging themselves enough, where maybe they have a lot of work from their job put on their plates and they're doing the same things, but it's not really growing or developing them. So those challenges are just beating them down instead of helping build them up. So being pulling out and doing a little audit on the different stressors and challenges and seeing where you are really sets the foundation. Then when we get into the next principle of all about energy, that's where you develop this intentionality around the things that you consume. So both your dietary nutrition, but then also your digital nutrition as well. So the foods that you're eating that'll help you during this momentum sprint, and also the types of content and the environment that you're around, the people, the conversations that you're involved in, all those things affect our energy and how we can show up for the growth that we're looking to set. And then once we get through there, we move into a little more clarity and direction and figuring out like, okay, what are our values? What is the lifestyle we're trying to build? What are these aspirations we're trying to set for ourselves? And gaining that clarity really gives us directions to make better decisions down the
Mhm.
road. Because oftentimes when we get trapped in burnout, we often just go to a quick response on what we're told by somebody else without necessarily thinking about ourselves and our futures. And that makes it difficult to get back out and get that traction. And then from clarity, we get into efficiency. And how do we smooth out our systems in our personal life so that we can show up better, more efficient, and faster in our professional lives? And then after we hone in on the efficiency, we get into social influence. So how to influence ourselves better by setting up a strong team around ourselves. And then also how do we influence other people so that we can take more action, create more impact. And then the final principle is all around opportunity and how do you create more opportunities for not only yourself, but other people around you as well, so that you bring better world to everyone.
I love this. From your experience, and this is off the cuff, you talked about the 6 core principles for many leaders. Is there a principle that many people will naturally gravitate to, or they find to be a little bit easier to commit to? Is there a principle that sometimes people are a little bit more hesitant to commit to?
Yes. So most of the time when I work with somebody or I hear somebody's struggling, going through something, one of these principles is kind of fallen off. We get really good and we experience a lot of success in our lives because we get better at certain things, whether we go through a lot of hardships as young kids and we develop such grit and resilience so we can handle a lot of things going forward. And maybe our resilience is strong and we put a lot on our plate, but because of that, we've also maybe closed ourselves off to a lot of individuals. So our social influence drops down and we don't have that system around us to help bring us up when tough times are around, or how to embrace other people to help them build up as well. So people come into the process struggling or lacking in certain principles or areas. And the idea of the process is to go through them so that each one stacks on top to create a better success for tomorrow kind of thing.
I love that. So here in Transformation Station, we always invite our leaders to take some time to stop and assess what we're hearing, right? Rob is dropping some serious gems. And I know that as you're listening to him, you absolutely can relate, because this is a very relatable leadership journey that all of us at some point in our leadership career find ourselves on. And so we want to invite you to not just hear what Rob is saying, but take some time to really stop, assess, ask yourself some very thoughtful and reflective questions. And as Rob continues to speak to us, we want to invite you to see hope and where the light is shining on how you can move forward. So, Rob, you use the phrase, look good, feel good, do great things, right? What does that actually mean in the context of performance and leadership?
Oh, I love that, because that's the embodiment of the 6 principles themselves. So when you're looking good, you've got the strength and the energy to really handle the ups and downs, because in life, entrepreneurship and business and such, there's a lot of downs and a lot of ups too. And you want to make sure, like we were talking about instability earlier, you want to make sure that you're smooth sailing all the way through. So having that strength and that energy to show up, feeling confident and looking good. And once you're looking good, now you're understanding where you're at currently, where you're trying to get to. That's that clarity and direction. And then once you optimize and smooth out the strategy on how to get from A to B, you're sailing nice and smoothly. And that's what it really means to feel good, having direction, having clarity, and moving smoothly and effortlessly through. And then finally, once you're looking good and feeling good, you can finally start to do great things. And you do that. You can do a lot of good things, I should say, by yourself. But in order to do some great things, you got to get around some even better people who pull you up, and people that you can pull up with you. Because when you start to do that and you've got everything else going well, you start to create those opportunities and you begin to develop luck in a way that you look like the overnight success, even though you put all this hard work in behind the scenes.
This is really important. So I'm pausing right now because I really want our listeners and our viewers to hear what you're saying. Rob is giving us again some series. This is almost like a masterclass. That's what I feel this is like right now. And as you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, like, man, how do I feel when I'm looking good, right? Looking good, I think, goes more than just what do I have on, but it speaks to what you're talking about, right? I'm showing up with intentionality. I'm showing up prepared, maybe not prepared for everything that's going to come my way through the day, but prepared to face it, right? I'm showing up in a manner that is authentic. And to all of us as leaders, we want to invite you, that our circumstances should never have the power to control or determine. They simply inform, right? Do great things. Can you just talk to us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's that old saying of it takes a village to raise a family or to be successful. It's so true in every aspect too. So you could do a lot of good things and you can maybe do some great things by yourself, but to really create the impact that so many of us leaders are set out trying to achieve and establish, you got to be able to do it with other people. You got to be able to bring people with you, and you need some people that'll help pull you through those times too, because no matter how tough you are or how strong or set forth you are, there are going to be times where you're going to need to lean on other individuals as well. So having that system and team around you really allows you to multiply the impact that you're creating. And that whole opportunity that comes with working with everybody else just exponentially trickles down to everybody all around. So in my world, I've worked with a lot of individuals one-on-one, but they've got families and they've got friends of family and everything else. So when those individuals that work with me start to feel better and they look good and they're doing great things, that trickles down into their families and then into their families and friends. And it starts to create this ripple effect that just exponentially grows.
I love this. I love this. Okay, leaders, again, I'm going to invite you to take some notes, and don't just share your notes with yourself, but share this with another leader. Have a conversation. Again, Rob has talked to us about look good, feel good, do great things. What does that mean to you in the context in which you are operating, in which you're living, whether it's in your office, whether it's, with your corporation or with your home life as well. So, as we turn the corner on this amazing conversation, I want to ask you this final question, okay? For entrepreneurs and leaders listening today, what's one principle or question that they can reflect on tonight to start building momentum tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the beginning and just saying like, hey, you got to reflect more consciously. Say, hey, where are you at right now? How are you actually doing? And how are you actually feeling? Have you been in the middle of a sprint season, or are you at the very end of a sprint season, or are you in a season of a little bit downtime and you're not taking the advantage to kind of set yourself up for the next sprint season? Because a lot of individuals push, and then totally crash. And then they wait until it's another sprint and then they're almost caught off guard. So spend a few seconds just to check in with yourself. Hey, how am I feeling? How's my energy? Am I clear with where I'm trying to get to? How is my life chaotic, or are things moving smoothly? And do I have a strong system around me with friends and families and coworkers? And do I feel like I'm creating more of an impact?
Rob, what about the leader who is the environment in which they work in is hard? I know that we're encouraging everybody to, be that team person and talk and feel, but maybe there's a leader that's watching right now that's in a difficult leadership situation. How would you encourage them?
I would have to have a little more context to the situation. And this might not be the answer that everyone's looking for, but it's tough to be a leader. You have to make very difficult decisions. And if you're in a place or a position that's just constantly beating you down and there's no room, you're fatigued, you're physically exhausted, you feel like there's no direction and you're stuck by yourself, and this doesn't seem like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, it might be time to pull the plug and have the difficult conversation of moving elsewhere. It's hard, but there is a point in time where you have to recognize that, hey, maybe this isn't the right fit for me. Maybe this business or position is not aligned with my values and the goals and things that I'm working towards. And maybe it is time to not jump ship, but change course.
Yeah, I love that. Leaders, you're getting some really good gems from Rob. And so, Rob, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there are leaders that want to hear more. They want to tap into your resources, maybe even connect with you for coaching. What's the best way that our viewers and listeners can engage with you?
Yeah, the easiest place to kind of stay up to date with what I've got going on and what I'm doing is Instagram and LinkedIn is where I typically hang out the most. And you can just find that by searching my name on both of those platforms. Should be the first one to pop up. But if anybody else is interested in hearing more about what I said today, another awesome spot to dive into is my podcast over at survivingthesidehustle.com. And if anybody listening wants to dive into a short little game plan strategy session with me, I'm offering a free call for anybody, and they can get to that at survivingthesidehustle.com/free call.
Okay, listen, community, we love free, and we also love to support our guests, right? So I want to invite everybody. You see the link on the screen. It's also in the description box. Please definitely contact Rob. Let him know that you saw or you heard this particular episode. Let him know what resonated with you and take advantage of that free call, because again, we know the community that learns together grows together. Rob, it has been awesome to have you with us, and I thank you for your clarity. I thank you for your transparency, and I thank you for sharing these gems of wisdom, leadership wisdom with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Absolutely. All right. Well, listen, today's conversation is a reminder that burnout doesn't have to be the end of our story, right? It can actually be the beginning of something more aligned and sustainable. I want to remind you that we have an amazing event coming up. That's right. On January 5 through 7, we're having Lead Her Shift. It's going to be a 3-day virtual reset for all women leaders. Definitely join us. The registration will open on December 24, and it's free, but you have to register in order to be in the room. So look out on Mobilizing with Impact Collective on Facebook and Mobilizing with Impact on LinkedIn, and join us January 5 through 7. If today's episode resonated with you, I want to invite you to take one insight that Rob shared with us and apply it intentionally this week, because small shifts in how you protect energy and set boundaries and redefine success can create powerful momentum. Until next time, keep on leading with courage and move from burnout to breakthrough.